parents got divorced, and her mom and her siblings had moved to Iowa. So her mom lived in town, her siblings lived in town, and she had family nearby. So I assume they went to Dalton's to check up on her, and she obviously wasn't there. So an investigation started right away because they're like, yo, she's
missing.
Where is she? Like, her phone's here even. Like, we have no idea where she's at. And her bag and her car and things like that. They looked at Dalton, obviously, immediately, because you always check the people closest to the ones who are missing. And they ruled him out immediately because he had a solid alibi. He was working 130 miles away. Like, people had seen him. He wasn't even near Brooklyn at that time. Brooklyn. So police believed that so Dalton knew that she had went on an evening run. So the police were like, okay, it must have happened during the run, whatever. So the police received a few hundred tips, including alleged sightings that proved to be false later. More tips came in. They ultimately had 2,300 plus tips. Like, they had so
many to go through, yeah.
And plus, she looked like, when you look at her, she looks like a very generic, like, American girl. She's white. She has long brunette hair. She has a big smile. Like, she looked kind of generic. And so we know that police have to follow up on every single tip, and they have to do this as a way to protect their case from the defense.
Okay, I just found so I'm just going to jump in real quick and say.
Absolutely.
So Sarah and I both have tattoos, and Evan is not a giant fan of tattoos. I just found your argument.
Yeah.
You want to be recognizable.
Yeah, if I'm a Jane Doe, you'll recognize me by my strange selection.
Right, they'll be like,
of
I
body
saw her
art.
running. Did she have a tattoo of hops on her arm? No, then it wasn't her.
They'll be like, I thought those were artichokes.
Did she have an alien on her ankle? Yes, it was her.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. I'm going to use that now. That's my own personal defense. The police held over 500 interviews and they went all through the cell phone records. And as far as I could tell, she didn't bring her phone with her, but it never really said that necessarily. Caitlin's doing yoga for some reason.
My back hurts.
Oh, we've been sitting here a long time dinking with this. Her family knew that she ran with a Fitbit. Fitbits are like little, if you don't know, they're little watches that track your GPS.
Are you saying Fitbit?
It's called a Fitbit.
It's a Fitbit.
Yeah, Fitbit.
It sounds like you're saying F-I-D.
No, it's F-I-T-B-I-T.
Fitbit.
Yeah, Fitbit.
Sounds like you're saying Fitbit.
I am saying
Say it.
A Fitbit. That's cuter.
Fitbit.
Mama. Dada.
It just sounds like you're saying, okay, I really thought you thought it was called a Fitbit.
No, I wrote F-I-T.
Okay.
Fitbits. They're Fitbits when there are more of them. Anyways, the runners call them Fitbits.
I wouldn't know. Fucking hate running.
Fitbits.
Fitbit.
Detect where you're going when you run. I'm enunciating.
Yeah, if you have that turned on, they do.
Yeah. But also, if you don't have it hooked up to anything, you can't see the GPS. Yeah. So they can be good, but also they're not always helpful.
Yeah.
So they utilized what information they could get from that. Didn't really help as they hoped it would, unfortunately. There were local searches the first few weeks of her disappearance. So weeks had gone by. No idea where.
I didn't know she was missing for that long.
Yeah. So they did all that in the first few days, and now like 3-4 weeks have went by. Laughing at the burp. They had searched a lot of different places. So in her boyfriend's house, for example, at a car wash, in a couple farms in a rural area, a truck stop, all places they had gotten tips at because they need to thoroughly investigate those. But all the tips were looked at and all the leads were looked at. They were received and nothing was found. So it was crazy. Around 4 weeks into the disappearance, Mollie's family gave a public plea. They were certain that Mollie had been abducted, but that she was still alive. They plastered missing persons posters on every telephone pole, on every door, on every bulletin in the area. They increased the reward for Mollie's safe return. The reward was $366,000.
Oh, wow.
Like, the family was like, we want Mollie back right now. And it was a communal effort, though. In large part, this was raised by the local Crime Stoppers unit. So, like, people donated. They're like, yes, small town, we want Mollie back. While all this was happening, the police were keeping very tight-lipped, though, even with the family. So unknown to the family and Mollie's friends, and even Dalton, too, whose brother's wedding had actually been postponed in light of the disappearance, the police were singling in on a man named Christian Bahena Riviera. On August 21st, a shock to the community came. The police announced that they had found a body near Brooklyn, Iowa, in a cornfield. The man they had been singling out on, Rivera, had led them to this body. And after 2 days, an autopsy was performed, and it was confirmed and announced that the body belonged to Mollie Tibbets. The coroner pronounced her death a homicide via multiple sharp force injuries. Christian Rivera was from El Guayabillo, Guerrero, Mexico, and he came to the USA when he was 17. I wouldn't mention his ethnicity except that it's relevant to the case later.
Yeah, I remember this being a giant deal when it all happened.
Yes. So while police were investigating the case, they found nearby surveillance videos on the night of Mollie's run and disappearance where she was missing. In the surveillance footage, a Chevy Malibu was driving back and forth where Mollie was running. The police were able to link the car to Christian, who self-identified as John Budd. That was his alias. And arrested him.
All right, Bud.
All right, John Budd. He's like, I need an Iowan name. Definitely John.
Bud.
That's what I picked too. Like John Budd.
I'd be Buck.
Would you?
Wheat.
Oh my God.
Uncle Buckwheat.
I'd be Maisie, like maize, like corn.
That's funny because Maisie is the name of the daughter in Uncle Buck.
Oh, yeah. Weird. Maybe that's why I thought of that and didn't even realize. Yeah. Okay, so surprisingly, Christian quickly admitted to the kidnapping and the murdering of Mollie. Like, he was like, yeah, I definitely did that. And then he's the one who told police where Mollie's body was. So it's like aim, shoot, score. Like, he's the one who told everyone. Aim, shoot, dunk. I don't know
Football.
what they say. Aim, shoot, touchdown.
Hockey.
Puck, baseball, bowling ball.
Quidditch. Bowling ball.
Beer pong.
Rage Cage. Rage Cage is the greatest drinking game ever.
Hungry Hippos.
Fucking love it.
That's my favorite drinking game.
Operation. Twister.
That can be a fun drinking game. So the case took a really irrelevant turn, I guess. Christian, a.k.a. John Budd, had been working at Yerraby Farms in Iowa, which was owned by a man named Craig Lang. Craig Lang.
I thought you said Wang. Not that that would be funny.
Wang.
Some people could have that last name and it's not funny, but if the word is not a last name, it's funny.
It's kind of funny anyway.
Well, Vera Wang isn't funny.
I
don't know why.
I don't know, because she's a rich, wealthy designer.
Caitlin Wang would be funny.
Craig Lang. Craig Lang was a prominent GOP fundraiser member of the Republican Party. He had hired Christian under the table to work on his farm as an undocumented worker, and the exchange for the work was partially some under-the-table money, but also free room and board on their land. So the Langs claimed that Christian gave them false information. They believed he was here legally, which I hate using the term like legal alien and illegal alien and things like that, but they thought he was like documented and all of those things, and I'm not sure they're telling the truth because it turns out they had like undocumented workers there, so who knows. Regardless, the Trump administration, mind you, this is 2018, took Mollie's case as an interesting opportunity to push restrictive immigration policies. Trump is even he's seen in a video promoting the wall because Christian came, quote unquote, came from Mexico and killed her. So it was proof we need the wall.
And I'm sure you're going to touch on this, but what fucking drives me crazy about this is this case, like already has become... like even what you've touched so far, is this is about a male killing a female, which you haven't gotten into yet, but this is a man killing a woman for other reasons. It has nothing to do with the fact that he came over from Mexico without going through the proper paperwork.
Yeah.
And we lost sight that it's a fucking man who killed a woman because of, sorry, not to get ahead of you, but
also, it's not about the paperwork at all. It's about the fact that Mollie was murdered.
Yes.
That's what it's about.
It has not, but his motive wasn't...
Yeah. Trump went as far as to say that the Democrats were responsible for Mollie's death due to their immigration policies. Pence even met with the Tibbets family, but ultimately used Mollie's death as a platform to exercise marketing for their immigration reform ideas. The Tibbets family weren't impressed. They called Trump heartless and despicable. And after the administration used Mollie's death to promote their prerogatives, the Tibbets family, as you should, had no interest in making this a race case because it's absolutely irrelevant. So Mommy's dad... my grandpa. So Mollie's dad even said, quote, "The Hispanic community are Iowans. They have the same values as Iowans. As far as I'm concerned, they're Iowans with better food." Which, true, Mexican food's great.
But that's not...
Yeah, they were deeply upset that this was being used, not just because it was taking away from Mollie's memory, but because
it was being used to discriminate against
and
other
they
people.
hated that. They hated it so much. So he also criticized anyone who appropriated Mollie's soul in advancing views she believed were profoundly racist. That's a quote from him. So he was like, Mollie would have hated this. Mollie would have not been for this. This is irrelevant. This has nothing to do with this. So on August 22nd, 2018, just over a month after Mollie went missing, very quickly, Christian was charged with first-degree murder. He had a $5 million bond set. And on September 19th, he pled not guilty. So this was a couple months after the disappearance.
Are you going to get into motive?
Yeah. Okay. I am, yeah. So currently, Rivero's awaiting trial, like right now, still. This is still going on. Yeah, I couldn't find anything. Maybe something happened, but it was not reported if it was. But that was in 2009. That just happened.
Yeah.
In 2009, September 19th was in 2018, but.
Yeah. But still, it can take a while.
Yes. So there were, and the reason is because there were a lot of issues. The defense brought up that he was read his Miranda rights, but he did not understand due to a language barrier. So a lot of things happened where the trial was started, then it stopped, then they were like, he doesn't have his Miranda rights, like all these things. But that's kind of aside from the point that I'm about to get into. So it's been rescheduled, but nothing else has come out. So what does this have to do with killing women for saying no? On the surface, nothing. But Christian didn't know Mollie. He only said he'd seen her running before. So that was his motive to kill her. He had seen her running multiple times. So, however, after this happened, multiple women came forward saying that Christian had harassed them on social media in like an extravagant way. Brooke Bestel, a young woman in Iowa in the community, said that Christian had asked her out and she had said no. And then he repeatedly messaged her relentlessly on social media in like kind of crass ways. Brooke's friends also told her when she brought it up, she's like, yo, this guy will not leave me alone. He asked me out. I said no. Brooke's friends were like, yo, he's doing the same thing to us. Like it was multiple women in that small town. So I found a pretty unsettling statistic in my research on Wikipedia. And this is looking at data in between 2009 and 2017, but mostly like 2010, 2012. So it's looking at recent data. Here are the countries with the most murder, which this just blows my mind in general. Brazil, about 50,000. India.
Is this per year or during that time frame?
Is per year, I believe. I'd have
to 50,000 people a year?
I think that's what it was saying, yeah. But it's a whole country.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Brazil, if I'm wrong, I will apologize and I'll post it somewhere and it'll be in the episode that comes out after this. I believe that that's what it is. So Brazil, 50,000. India, 43. Nigeria, Mexico, Congo, South Africa, Venezuela. USA is number 6 on the murder list of like all countries, which kind of blows my mind. We have just shy of, so it's year. We had just shy of 15,000 homicides in 2010, for example. So surprisingly to me, men are murdered 3 times more than women are. I would assume women were murdered more. But women are much more likely to be murdered by someone they know or have met or are an acquaintance of.
The motive is very different, typically.
Yes, exactly. So women are murdered by people they know, which we know. Perpetrators 9 out of 10 times are men. Men are murdered more, men murder more. In 2018, all races of women saw a 21% spike in homicide. 21% that year that Mollie was murdered. So stop killing women. He essentially picked a woman he saw running because he couldn't
have her, yeah.
He couldn't have all the women he like asked out.
Yeah, this is not an immigration issue.
No.
This is a societal issue. Yeah, and I'm going to touch on this kind of stuff in my story too, but this is not an immigration issue.
No.
And it pissed me off when this case happened and people used it for an immigration issue. Like
I didn't even see this case when it happened.
Oh, I did. But it's no different than like the media treats people so differently based on what they look like, right? Like this is a whole different issue, but if an illegal immigrant does something, then they did it because they're illegal and then all immigrants are bad. If a non-white person does something, they're typically called a terrorist. If a white guy does something, he came from a troubled home. Like it's fucking horseshit the way they portray this stuff in the media. Well, and then women, you see women get blamed. Like, what was she wearing? Did she drink too much? Like, fuck off with all of that stuff. I'm so mad.
T-shirt, fuck off with all of that stuff.
Fuck off with all of that stuff.
Just a t-shirt. I'm so mad.
I'm so mad.
Just in general.
I'd wear a shirt that says I'm so mad. Chelsea.